Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. I've got a new sponsor to announce. Arizona Silver Exploration is a new sponsor. And I've got a friend of the show from way back, Yale Simpson. Thank you very much for joining us today, Yale.
Yeah, well, when you say way back, I guess if you look at the color of my hair, you'd say, oh, I guess he's got a lot of way back behind him.
There you go. I
There
didn't
you
have
go.
as much gray hair back then either.
No, no. I think we touched base and we were doing some business together maybe 10 to 15 years ago, Allan. Was that
Yeah.
about it?
Yeah, well, just to bring our new audience up to speed, Yale and his companies are in my personal mining hall of fame. Back in my days when I ran the Allan report, and I've switched it to Rocks and Stocks News. I covered about 30 companies, and over half of them became takeovers or became mining companies. And two of those companies were run by Yale Simpson, Exeter, and then Exeter spun out Extore, and Exeter was bought out, and Extore was bought out. So that's why you're in my mining hall of fame, Yale.
There you go. Well, yeah, because Extore was bought out in 2012 by Yamana, and they put that mine in production. It's now with Pan American Silver. And the other one that Exeter had, it was bought out by Gold Corp, which was bought out by Newmont. So now Newmont, I don't know what they're doing with that opportunity, but yeah, you're correct. If that's what it takes to be in your Hall of Fame, then I guess I put in two.
Yeah, there you go. Yale, what I appreciated a lot about you was your insights into the market. And before we get into Arizona Silver, I think we're kind of in a perfect storm for gold and silver. What are your feelings about gold and silver these days?
Um, Anybody who's been in the business as long as I have would always be saying the gold price is going higher. Um, I really can't say on a day-to-day basis. It's interesting, the price activity for the metal, anybody can read about that. I think much more for the investor. We well know that the equities are lagging behind the gold price, especially for the juniors and the micro caps, if you like, especially so. And there's going to be a period of catch up. And as I see it, when it happens, Allan, you know well, when it happens really quickly. All of a sudden, the light goes on, and these stocks double and treble. And you say, well, where was that coming from? It's just because of the catch up. It's easier to see it in copper. And I'm involved in other other companies. And in copper, everybody talks about the green energy transition, the fact that we've got to have more copper. But even there, the price activity hasn't really taken off as much as it will. And if you want to talk commodities, like it's really easy for copper, it's really easy for nickel, it's really easy for cobalt. Gold is always more of a challenge because of the factors that you and I that come out of the woodwork all the time. But certainly the micro caps are way undervalued and way behind where I expect them to go in the next several months. But I'm an optimist. Probably you are too.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
we kind of been through this before, Yale. Back in the year 2000, we saw a very similar situation. The US dollar was strong, gold was weak, and the mining stocks were pummeled. And I think we're starting to see the US dollar coming under some pressure. Gold has certainly got a lot better. And yet we haven't seen that participation of even some of the larger mining companies and all the way down the food chain. I think that tide rising all boats phenomenon is very close.
Yeah, I think, there has been some, I think last week you saw the likes of Newmont, and I own quite a bit of Newmont still. And it went up 5 to 7% or something. But you look at where the gold price is compared to what it was in the last run up, and they're not even close to being where they were. They were almost $100 Newmont, okay, and now they're like 60. Okay, so there's a lot. The people on the street aren't talking gold, and when they do, it takes off because it's a very small part of the financial marketplace. You know that, just tiny. Doesn't take a lot of man on the street activity to drive it higher, especially the equity. So anyway, I'm involved in a few of these juniors and to Arizona Silver. And it probably you should make the introduction, not me, but it's one of those no-brainer kind of juniors where there's all sorts of reasons to tick the box on it, and that's kind of why I'm involved.
And bringing up Arizona Silver, there's some parallels to your success with Extory in that Extory was a epithermal vein system and took a little while to really hit the guts of the system. But when you did, it was kitty bar the door sort of situation. And I see a similar situation with Arizona Silver in that, they've been drilling pretty shallow and actually finding some exceptional grades when you think that they could be above the boiling zone. That's what I wanted to pick your brain on. Some of the similarities between a big success you had with an epithermal vein system.
Yeah, I think no two gold deposits are alike. You know that they seem broadly alike, but they're not. And this one called Philadelphia that they have, it's different to the extent that they've drilled. I'm going to say a mile of strike, 1.7 kilometers of strike or something. But they haven't drilled it off. They've done some drilling. They need to do more, but they've got all this low grade. If you want to bulk up ounces, it's way easier with the low grade. And in that part of the world, you need less than half a gram of gold in leachable material to have an ore body. Well, if that's the case, and that's the parameter you want to put on it, they've never missed. Okay. And so it's something where, as I see it, they're likely to bulk up ounces on that. And then when they drill deeper, and get into what you're calling the boiling zone, which might be called the bonanza zone, which is a characteristic of these systems, then you'll see high grade come in on the vein. And I'm just going by the model. I can't guarantee anybody that. And then it'll be known in the retail market is this high grade gold play. But you'll always look at it and say, well, yeah, look at all the ounces in the low grade though. And that's got to come out, and you could heap leach it and all of that sort of stuff. So it is different from something like Cerro Moro. Cerro Moro had, this is the one that we had, it had dozens and dozens of veins, each one to be drilled. And so when we sold it, we'd put 1,700 drill holes in it. We'd have 6 rigs going year after year. This is way easier. This is much more, yeah, they need to drill a lot more, but they're only drilling it in a fashion that, given market conditions, how quickly they can drill it off and how cost effectively, which is why they're doing reverse circulation. There's all sorts of reasons, but it probably needs another, if I were to look at it, you put another 100 holes into this, and that's not many, particularly that the drilling costs down there are really, really good compared to other places in the world. You'll not only find that boiling zone, but you'll probably push the open pit potential, the low grade, you'll double it. And so I think it'll break out in terms of the resource.
There's evidence in the alteration that you can actually see from Google Earth that low grade open pit type heap leachable target could be quite big.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that everything about this system relates to what they call Red Hill. And anybody who's following this should look at the information and especially the PowerPoint, see something called Red Hill. Now, Red Hill's what makes it really unusual. When you walk along the strike of this thing, you can see the vein and you can see some pits and you can see alteration. But beside you is this low mountain called Red Hill. And Red Hill is really altered, what we call hydrothermal alteration. Everything about it says there's a lot of juice underneath me. And yet that isn't close to being tested. They've done some surface work, but when I look at the combination of that vein system on a fundamental fault called the Arabian Fault, I look at all that disseminated material, what we call the stock work, the low grade stuff, and then I see Red Hill, I say, whoa, that is the opportunity. That tells a story. If you were a major company and you looked at this and you saw all the alterations, you say, what's underneath Red Hill? Because there's a lot of juice going up into it. It's a big feature, and it's just down dip from where they've been drilling. And if you want to go talk about boiling zone, if you want to talk about something that went from modest size to very impressive, it's because they drilled it deep enough to go underneath Red Hill. And it's profound when you go look at it, that there's this thing staring at you.
And for our non-geologists out there, what happens is when the fluids that contain the metals make their way to surface, they chemically alter the country rock. And when you see a big alteration zone, that's suggestive of a big mineralizing system. And that seems to be what has Yale all hyped up.
Well, I mean, the only reason I'm involved in Arizona Silver is because I went out there and looked at the project and I said, oh, I like this project. And I have some experience with these things, but I said, the upside of this is very good. Just when you talk about these hydrothermal systems, and I am a geologist, there's something a little bit different about this thing. Was very explosive, really explosive. So everything that they've been drilled for the most part near surface has been beaten up by subsequent explosions at the time this thing was formed. Red Hill is something called a flow dome. You don't need to go there what that means, but it's part of this explosive event. And it's large scale. And that's what's impressive. It's a large scale. Yeah, and when just to kind of round a circle a bit, I said, you can bulk up the ounces on the on the low grade, but you go down dip for the high grade. That isn't quite true, because at the northern end, a couple of years ago, they did some drilling. They found a shallow, probably with faulting. The high grade was brought to surface. It was going like ounce material, okay, over mineable widths. And I know when they drilled underneath it, it cut out. And they saw, oh, there's a fault in there, it's cut out. But that showed the capability of this thing. And all we need to do is say, okay, further south, we know it's deeper there, but we've seen that it has high grade to the north, bonanza grades. Let's drill it deeper to the south. And that's where they're at. I might say one other thing, Joe. The progress of exploration on this is being determined by two factors. One is access to money, and the other one is access to the land. They progressively tied up this land over a couple of years. So where they're drilling now, they couldn't have drilled 2 years ago. They didn't have that land under control. So now all the land is under control. And had they had that at the beginning, then they probably would have drilled it differently. So I think some people say, how come you chew away at this thing? Well, it's because they didn't own all the land before, which they do now. And the land position is very impressive. When you look at the website, you'll see what they call patented claims with the name Rising Fawn and things like that. But that's just part of the total land package, which is impressive for that area.
You were saying something there that got me thinking. If that's such a powerful system, is there a possibility that there's a porphyry sitting underneath there?
Well, they say that about every system like that you go down there far enough and you might find a porphyry, but that might be down 3 kilometers. I don't know. It's not near surface. And
Well, something is
it's,
certainly broken up that rock.
yeah, the only way you get the poor, let's not go there, Allan. Okay. That's another
Okay.
discussion that
All right.
geologists can have over a beer.
Well, fortunately, you brought up a couple other things. This company has been run by management that is very cognizant and aware of the importance of share structure. And I think they've done a wonderful job to do the exploration that they've done, acquire the additional land, and yet keep a tight share structure.
Oh, it's the envy of many a junior. Can I say this, that if you look at a company and say, why might I be involved? Okay, look at the geology, look at the rocks, look at the numbers. Yeah, tick that box. And then you can look at share structure and say, is this tight enough such that any good news will affect the market? And that's what you're referring to with this company. Absolutely. Say anything and that stock can go up. And then the third piece of that is, do you have a promoter or let's call it a CEO who thinks about the market? And Mike Stark is one amazing fellow for knowing what it takes to put out the right information in a timely manner and know his shareholders. And for here, if you look at the stock chart, the stock chart says I'm going higher and I'm about to break out. And when I break out, I'll go to an all-time high. So that's the piece of it that so many juniors, and Mike isn't a geologist. He says, I'm not a geologist. I've got Greg Hahn, who's probably one of the best geologists in the Western US. What Mike does is he watches his market, he keeps in touch with his shareholders relentlessly, and they believe him. And he's now got a perfect situation where gold is coming on. He's got a chart that says it's going higher, and he has news flow in the pipeline to deliver that higher price, not only with the last press release, but with what's coming, with what's coming up. Yeah, look at that chart. That chart says I'm going higher, and if I break through that high that I had on the left side of the chart, I'm going a lot higher. I mean, how would you like to have that chart?
I like this bottoming pattern here, then the breakout, and you've got a golden cross right there. And another thing I really follow on these charts here is the 200-day moving average is starting to trend upwards. The 50-day moving average is on a very beautiful trajectory, and the stock is trading well above the 50-day and well above, almost double the price of the 200-day. So going back to your point, there's a lot of reasons to say that this one's a power chart, and a lot of that has to do with the quality of the project, the quality of the team, and the tight share structure.
That's interesting. A very good friend of mine said to me, he said, Yale, there's nothing makes a stock go up like a stock that's going up. and I know when I invest in various companies, of course, you hear the technical side, and then you look at the price chart. You look at the chart. If the chart shows this downward trend that's going down, 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 you very well know it's going to be very hard to get me excited. If I see a stock that's bottomed out and on an uptrend, it's very easy for me to get involved. The only question then is, did I miss the boat? And you only know that by following and say, what news flow do I have? If I got the right news flow ahead of me, no, I haven't missed the boat.
Well, and another thing reason I bring up the stock share structure, Yale, is that it tells you, like, I often will get questions, well, how do they manage their money and stuff like this? You can tell a lot about the philosophy of a junior mining management from the share structure. If they're paying themselves big wages and they don't own a lot of stock and they have a lot of options out, they tend to have a broken share structure. Companies that are mindful of the money, own a big chunk of the stock, they tend not to be the ones that want to have a lifestyle company and blow out the share structure.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is some truth to that. And I could, over a beer, have a discussion with you, because there's some projects that need a lot of money, a lot of funding. There's some of them that I'm involved with one company that we need $30 to $40 million to effectively drill something. Okay. Well, everybody says that. I know they need a lot of money. I know they lead a lot. So you end up with a blown out share structure, and not because management is having a high lifestyle. It's just they've got that kind of a
No,
project.
I was
Arizona
speaking
Silver is a
more
bit different.
in general terms.
Yeah, in general
Everything
terms, you're
has
absolutely right.
specific
Yeah.
issues, but
Yeah.
in general terms,
Having been on the other side, Allan, I know from a junior company perspective, if an exploration manager or a CEO is being paid more than $100,000 a year, they think it's a lifestyle for the poor guy. Okay. And yet you have a person who's working for Barrick, who's a senior geologist, he's getting 300,000. Is that a lifestyle? So I know what you're saying.
yeah,
But I look at the executives, Mike Stark, and those guys in Arizona Silver, they're paid a pitiful amount of money relative to what they're doing with that company.
and you mentioned Greg Hahn, and I think he's a very important part of this whole story. Understanding these epithermal vein systems is very important. And you were mentioning to me that Greg is maybe one of the top experts on these kind of systems.
Yeah, he could write the book, or maybe he has. I think in the Western U.S., if you say Greg Hahn, they say, "Oh, how Greg? I haven't seen Greg for 6 months. How's Greg doing? I saw him at the such and such a conference." He's very impressive. He's teaching me geology. He's certainly in a position also that when Mike Stark puts him onto a shareholder, he can phrase it in a way that it's straightforward to understand without going into the hydrothermal alteration with the illite clays and things like that. He's very good at that, but he's an impressive guy, very straightforward. You don't get any BS out of Greg Hahn. And so he's kind of, he's the right guy. And they only have one other geologist underneath them. They don't have teams. Okay, that company is basically run by 3 people. Okay. That's it.
What you described there is something I've always paid attention to. I was kind of a big fan of Albert Einstein when I was a young boy, and that was his definition of genius, is being able to communicate really technical things that everybody can understand. So I always appreciate those kind of people. They tend to be knowing what they're talking about.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think what people might do with respect to this one, you might look at the Arizona Silver website, and they've got, because they're in an area that has the Oatman mining district nearby, and Oatman was fabulous grades, and there's an image in there showing the Oatman mine, and what the grades are near surface was like nothing. And when they went down all of a few hundred feet, the grades were bonanza grades. And it went from being narrow to really wide and really high grade. And that's something about these systems that we had also in Argentina, Cerro Moro. When you go down and get into this boiling zone, as you talk about it, the vein gets wider, and the wider it gets, the richer it gets. And it's like, wow. What a sweet spot. And let's wait for it in Arizona Silver.
Well, that's why I'm interested. I love that great stuff, Yale.
Okay. Yep. That's the story. Pretty simple.
Yeah. And with you involved, I have a lot of confidence. And with the rest of the team, Yale, did you want to, I know you're kind of tight for time. Did you want a closing comment?
No, just like I said, if you look at the factors of good rocks, good people, and good promotion, you got it in Arizona Silver.
Awesome, Yale. And I
Okay,
will follow this interview up and get Greg Hahn and Mike Stark
good
on
idea.
it.
Good
I
idea. Thank you.
Yale, I really appreciate your time. It's been too long, and we always had fantastic conversations in the past. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm going to
And
close it off. We can have a goodbye at the end.
okay, thank you.
Okay, there you go, folks. In Arizona Silver, they have, as Yale said, all the right check marks. They've got the right geology. They got a project where they have good access, cheap exploration. They're getting good things with the truth machine and their drilling. They've got lots of indications that things should get better. The stock chart is moving in a nice pattern. Actually, it's performing better than many of its peers. And I think this is all indicative of the quality of the story. As always, my shows are for information purposes only. It's important for you to speak with your financial advisors and do your homework. And as Yale said, do that homework. Go to their website, check out their corporate presentations, check out their news releases, and I think you'll gain a lot of confidence that this is a company with an excellent future. On that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Allan.